There's something strange about ApeCoin, but before I explain why, we need to understand where it started. Bored Ape Yacht Club. This top NFT collection has had quite the year. Just last April, you could mint one of these characters for around $200. Today, the cost to get in is just shy of the average home price in the United States. These NFTs have the attention of high-profile celebrities, and they've become this kind of dream hold for your average NFT investor. The ultimate online status symbol. One that says, I have so much money, I'll buy a JPEG that I could screenshot for multiple six figures. Just to say that I'm in the club. But Bored Apes have a problem. They're so out of reach for the average investor that it almost makes them less cool. I mean, take Gucci, a very high-end brand. Whether you like it or not, owning a Gucci piece gives you this small bit of their status. You could do that by buying a jacket for several $1,000s, which is inaccessible to most people. Or, for a few $100, you could buy this ring. Still expensive, but not impossible to afford for most. The point is, even Gucci has options that are expensive enough to give status, but cheap enough to be within reach. It's possible. You could buy that ring if you really wanted to. Bored Ape is getting out of touch. $300K, it's just too much. So what does Bored Ape do? First, they can diversify, which is smart and exactly what they did, purchasing the IP for CryptoPunks and Meebits, meaning Yuga Labs, the owners of Bored Apes, now own the top 3 NFT brands in the world. But that's not enough. I mean, it makes the brand a little bit cooler and a little more dominant in the space, but the accessibility didn't get a whole lot better. They needed something else. Something that they could sell for far less, but it wouldn't hurt their ultra high-end brand image. They couldn't sell NFTs for $10 a piece, but they could sell a token. If Bored Ape came out with a token, they could sell it to the masses who would feel like they get to be part of this ultra high-end, growing, successful brand, and they get the opportunity for a couple bucks, not 6 figures. They could airdrop the token to their mega rich NFT holders and get all the goodwill of the brand, creating an entirely new revenue stream. It's genius, and it's exactly what they did. But is it a good idea to invest in? We'll explore that in a minute, because first we need to talk about this token launch. ApeCoin is the brand new token. Yuga Labs and some VCs are the contributors behind its inception. Now, Yuga Labs insists that it wasn't launched by them. However, in reality, it couldn't have happened without significant effort on their part. Nevertheless, Yuga Labs is distancing themselves from the project and wants no connection with it from here on out, except of course the 150 million tokens that they received for their participation, now currently worth about $2 billion. It's kind of odd. On the Yuga Labs homepage, they say that they're contributors to ApeCoin and they'll use it as their primary token in their future projects. But everywhere you look, you see mentions that they're not responsible for the token. Let's put this in a different context. Imagine your friend starts a business. You decide to help him out with the creation, and you advertise to investors that you're a member of the business and you plan to use his services. In return for this, you get 15% of your friend's business. But at the same time, you say that you're not responsible for the business and anything bad that happens. I'll let you make your own interpretation of that. Now, Yuga isn't the only one who benefited from the newly launched ApeCoin. Every Bored Ape holder was airdropped 10,000 tokens. At its current price, that's $130,000 for a single airdrop for free. This is awesome. The community actually benefiting from the token launch. And even cooler, the launch kind of came out of nowhere, being announced only a few days prior to the big day. Within 24 hours of launch, it had trading volume of over $9.2 billion. So if Yuga Labs doesn't control ApeCoin, who does? Well, that would be the ApeCoin DAO. Now, my favorite way to explain a DAO is an internet community with a shared bank account, an organization where everyone gets a vote, but it's not exactly that simple. See, DAOs, they need a sort of foundation to back them, someone who's writing the checks, making the hires. So a new organization has been formed called the ApeCoin Foundation. Members of the special council on the ApeCoin Foundation include some heavy hitters. By holding ApeCoin, you become a member of the ApeCoin DAO. That means you have a say in the governance of ApeCoin proportional to how many tokens you hold, including voting privileges as to where the community heads in the future. This is awesome. A community built around the most well-known NFT brands with tokens and voting rights available to basically anyone. Or is it? What do the voting rights actually mean? Does your vote really matter? Looking at the tokenomics, it's hard to argue that it does. 8% of the total token supply goes to Bored Ape founders. That's separate from the chunk that Yuga Labs received. This is where things get a tad sneaky. Here you can see that it says 16% of the token supply went to Yuga Labs plus charity. If you're like me, your first thought is, okay, that 16% is split with charity. But looking at the fine print, charity gets 6% of that 16%. Now, I'm not sure this is a red flag. And ultimately, donating to charity is great, but it's surely written in a way to make the charity donation seem larger. Then we have the 14% of the supply going to, quote, launch contributors, which is just code word for venture capitalists. And then finally, we have the community fund that makes up 62% of the supply. This includes airdrops to NFT holders. The question is this equitable? Is it fair that roughly 38% of the total supply is going to insiders essentially for free? I mean, we might suppose that they deserve some of the supply for building the project. They definitely deserve something, but what have they actually built? So far, we have a website and the ApeCoin, which is an ERC20 token. I've demonstrated in the past that you can make an ERC20 token with about $500 and 10 minutes of time. There we go. The coin is created. And no token would be complete without a proper logo or a white paper. And there you have it, a complete ERC20 token. And you might think, okay, maybe it's cheap to get started, but they have to pay for staff and infrastructure for the future. However, within that 62% ecosystem fund, we can see the inclusion of treasury and resource funds to not only sell this token to the public, but also fund future operations. But maybe none of this matters. If ApeCoin has enough utility, if they're really building something exciting, maybe we can look past this. But before we explore that, we need to chat about the claims that this token is an outright scam. From here, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, iTrust Capital. iTrust allows you to place your crypto in a Roth retirement account. What this means is you can buy, sell, and trade crypto and pay zero capital gains on your wins. This is amazing for traders. With a Roth, you pay your tax upfront when putting money into the account, and at retirement, you pay no tax once you start pulling out at age 59 and a half years old. This is probably the most simple way to save on all capital gains. iTrust will be linked in the description of this video. If you use that link to open an account, you'll receive $100 in free Bitcoin just for joining. When ApeCoin first launched, it was priced at over $20 before dropping almost instantly. This left many potential investors thinking the party was already over before it got started. This doesn't mean it's a scam. It's just a quirk of airdrops. Token holders don't really have an incentive to hold long term, so they sell. I mean, think of yourself in the shoes of a Bored Ape holder. You're airdropped $100,000 in tokens. What would you do? Personally, I'd sell at least some of the tokens. So again, a price drop doesn't necessarily mean that it's a scam. However, speaking of scams, there are tons of fake ApeCoin giveaways that you need to watch out for. If you see anyone offering to give away free ApeCoin, there's a high likelihood that they're a scammer. Never give them your seed phrase or any kind of information that could compromise your wallet. Whether you like ApeCoin or not, you're probably curious about the price potential, because if we've learned anything about crypto, you don't necessarily need a ton of utility to see massive growth. If people like it, they will invest in it and push up the price. Unfortunately, ApeCoin isn't a tiny token as is. If it were to 6x, it would roughly match the market cap of Polkadot, one of the largest and most diverse projects built on its very own blockchain. The largest ERC20 token currently is Shiba, with a market cap about 4 times larger than ApeCoin. Unfortunately, we don't really know where the price is going to head. On the one hand, we've seen how far hype can move markets. I mean, Shiba went from on nobody's radar to a top 10 in a matter of weeks. But on the other hand, if you want staying power, you need utility. So what is the ApeCoin actually going to do? Strangely enough, the main ApeCoin website, which appears to double as their white paper, seems to have no roadmap or mention of what is being built besides the DAO. However, remember, Yuga Labs says they will use ApeCoin as the currency within their future projects. Yuga Labs just received $450 million in investments to build their very own metaverse. We don't have a ton of details, but we do have this teaser video that shows their NFT characters interacting in a 3D world. And the post itself says powered by ApeCoin. But how will ApeCoin be used exactly to support the metaverse economy and mechanics? My guess is as good as yours at this point. What we do know is that their goal is to create an interoperable, gamified, and decentralized world in the style of Ready Player One. $450 million is serious money, but we can't forget that they're not the only players in the space. I mean, Meta is planning on investing $10 billion into the metaverse, and Microsoft just bought Activision Blizzard for $70 billion in their attempt to enter the space. That's tough competition. Then again, Animoca Brands is building their very own play-to-earn game as well that plans to use ApeCoin as currency. So where does this leave us? We have powerful brand recognition, but hesitation to have responsibility. Big claims, but nothing really built yet. Here's what I think. It's not a scam, but a bet at this point is high-risk territory. If the market cap was 200 million, this would be a completely different story. But of course, that doesn't mean the price can't go up. I mean, crazier things have happened. In terms of the actual token though, I'm not a fan of token allocations as they err on the greedy side, given what it would have cost to get started. Either way, this is a token to absolutely keep an eye on, especially once we know more about this metaverse being built. That's gonna do it for today. I'm Max Maher, and I hope you have a profitable day.